So today I would like to make a quick video about the worst case brain. Do you happen to know it? When the brain always produces the worst possible scenario.
Welcome to the Wild Mind Society. Come in, make yourself comfortable.
And I have this suspicion, which I'll get back to at the end, that it's also connected to trauma. What I mean is neurodivergence and trauma definitely do have a connection, although I am still not entirely sure yet what that exactly is. The worst case brain turns every situation into a drama. And I really have to say, for many decades, I was trapped in the thought spirals of my worst case brain. At this point in time, I cannot truly say that I have silenced it, but I am able to observe it. And today there was actually a recent case, but let me start from the beginning. For example, back when my kids finally grew up and the older ones first started going out in the evening. Yeah, that was also about 20 years ago. And they came home too late. Then I didn't think, oh, well, they're just running late or the subway wasn't running or whatever. But instead, the absolute worst case scenarios were playing out inside of my own head. I could get so worked up back in those days. I didn't know anything about neurodivergence and how a brain works. I was also not quite as far along in my spiritual practice yet. Nowadays, I think to myself, nothing happens by chance, everything happens for a reason. But back in those days, it was really like, I think that I already had a, how do you say, just wait a second. We will be getting to him later on, by the way. That is Ollie. Say hello. I think I had already worn a path running around the table. And sometimes I would just drive through Vienna completely aimlessly, looking for the kids through Vienna. Where was I even going to look for them? Yeah, it was completely crazy, but it was easier for me to handle than just sitting at home and simply waiting. It was during a period of time when we all already had our own cell phones. It was just pretty much impossible for me to simply sit there and wait around. It turned out that absolutely nothing had ever happened. So that's kind of like that famous Mark Twain quote, I've had a lot of terrible things happen to me, and thank God none of them actually occurred. You can really apply that quote. And that can still happen to me today with the two younger kids when they are out and about. That I also say, let me know when you are back home, and then they don't get in touch. Or I take a look at my WhatsApp in the morning and then suddenly realize, oh my God, she hasn't texted me, or he hasn't texted me. My husband then says it is because they forgot. And this feeling of anxiety stays with me until the very moment I finally have certainty. And this morning I was out and about with this little guy. He's had it ever since yesterday evening. Eaten nothing. Well, since yesterday morning. He didn't even eat his breakfast yesterday morning. He didn't even want to have his afternoon lickable treat, and he did not eat anything at all in the evening either. So of course I then Googled, as you usually do, to see how long cats can go without food. And then I found the advice everywhere, 24 hours at the absolute most. So I thought, okay, that would be this morning. He didn't eat anything this morning either, and I can't really tell if he's had any water. So we thought to ourselves, well, with all this heat, and my regular vet wasn't available. So I called a different veterinarian, and then I got my cat carrier ready, and then he started to eat a little bit of food. And I thought to myself, well, I don't really know. I'm going to the vet anyway. So that's exactly what I did. And on the way in the car, all these thoughts started coming to my mind. I looked over, I had secured the cat carrier in the car and kept looking over at it, thinking, oh God, what if I have to drive home with an empty cat carrier because we had to put her down? I thought to myself, hey, he just hasn't eaten, so I could still calm myself down. And then the thought came to my mind, oh my God, a completely strange vet in an unfamiliar city. What if the cat carrier suddenly opens up and he is gone? Then we already went through all of the possible scenarios of what could happen if he was gone. And the other part of my brain was saying, stay calm. You know how this is. Your thoughts are just running wild right now. But that's how it was. Fact is, he doesn't really have anything. The doctor asked for give a shot to stimulate his appetite and inject a little fluid under the skin so he doesn't dehydrate. And when we finally arrived back home, he had a really good appetite. The cat carrier, of course, didn't open. That right there is a really good old one from about 25 years ago. It still works incredibly well indeed. But these worst case thoughts, they are just so incredibly life-limiting. And now today I can say, I can calm myself back down from that spiral, you know? But back then I simply couldn't do that. Back then it was like these thoughts started at a single point and then they just completely ran away with me. And of course, an ADHD brain is incredibly fast at thinking and instantly sees 1,000 possibilities of what might have happened. All sorts of things just pop into your head. And I always have this one theme, which is being defenseless. So with the kids, for example, I never imagined them being run over by a car, but it was always that they somehow drove into a ditch, they're still alive, and no help is coming. So for me personally, the main issue was always that nobody is coming to help. And of course, I have looked into that quite closely, also during my supervision sessions as well. And it actually is a childhood trauma of mine. Something happens and absolutely nobody comes to help at all. Perhaps this particular aspect will help you to take a much closer look at your very own worst case scenarios. Because I do think that so many of us actually have them. So I hope, or no, I do not think that I am the only one who is here at all right now. Because there is a deep trauma issue underlying all of this. And I often wonder to what extent neurodivergence is caused by trauma, or just how much trauma might actually serve to further amplify neurodivergence. Because the vast majority of people I know who are highly neurodivergent also happen to have their own personal history of trauma. And that is really worth taking a very close look at. And today I want to give you something for when you get stuck in one of those worst case loops. What is it that actually happened in the worst case scenario? Just try to take a moment and simply observe your own thoughts. What really helped me personally was to tell myself, wait, stop. And then I kind of stood there face to face with myself. One part of me kept on racing, thinking about what else could have possibly happened. And the other part of me was just looking at me and thought to itself, aha, there you go, you are thinking once again. Going through the exact same kind of scenarios. Maybe different topics, but in the end, it is always exactly the same. Something happened, the child or the animal is helpless, and absolutely nobody ever comes to help. And perhaps maybe you would like to, only if you really want to do so, of course, take a much closer look at these scenarios of yours and see if you might also be able to help yourself by realizing that it is actually always the same issue that is popping up. With that in mind, Ollie, say goodbye. Say goodbye. Oh God, I think he's still a bit dazed from all the driving. Have a great evening.